Right now at 8, the Wisconsin Supreme Court rejecting an attempt to obtain voting records what conservative activists were seeking to find with that information. Plus, time is running out on TikTok, with the social media company saying it will go dark tomorrow. Then later, we are now just 2 days out from Donald Trump's second term in office. We'll take you to D.C. with what to expect from the inauguration. This is Weekend Mornings, and thanks for joining us here this Saturday morning. I'm Kyle Pazorski. It is January the 18th. Actor Kevin Costner turned 70 today. Let's start with a look at the first warm forecast, and Jacob Montesano has that. Good morning, Jacob.
Good morning, Kyle. And if you remember from our earlier show, temperatures were in the middle 20s. They've already dropped into the upper teens right now, 18 degrees in Madison. They're likely going to stay at this level for much of the day, but certainly it will be cooler, especially by the afternoon compared to yesterday. Now, a big reason for that is we are seeing some strong northerly, northwesterly winds at around 10 to 20 miles per hour, which is bringing in that cold air. And for today, it will keep the air from rising much further. Now, looking at the current wind chills, we're already seeing wind chills in the single digits and wind chills below zero the further northwest you go, even in the negative teens already for some portions of southeastern Minnesota. So you can kind of see signs of those temperatures beginning to fall, and they're going to continue to fall overnight. Now, it's also going to remain breezy throughout the day, and we're going to continue to see northwesterly winds. But once we get to the overnight hours, this temperature will no longer be steady. They're going to drop even further. But for the day, it's still not going to be too bad, and I want to emphasize that because it's still going to be very cold today, especially with wind chills around zero. But it's going to be warm today compared to tomorrow. So alert day conditions do begin tonight as those temperatures plummet. But for today, we are still going to not have the alert day in the forecast, but it still will be cold with teens for actual temperatures, wind chills near zero. I'll talk more in detail about just how cold the wind chills will get by tomorrow morning, coming up a little bit later.
All right, Jacob, thank you. We'll check back in just a bit. Topping our news, the Wisconsin Supreme Court rejecting Friday an attempt by a conservative activist group to obtain voter records. They allege the number of ineligible voters does not match the count on Wisconsin's voter registration list. The High Court did not rule on the merits of the case, but rather saying in a 5-2 decision that a lower appeals court did not follow proper procedure when issuing a ruling which said the records should be released. The clock will stop ticking for TikTok tomorrow. That is, unless the Biden administration decides to intervene. In a statement Friday, the Chinese-owned company is asking the White House to act urgently to assure that they won't be punished for violating the terms of the looming ban. The U.S. Supreme Court upheld the law requiring TikTok to be sold to an American buyer or face an outright ban.
TikTok is trying to put maximum pressure on Biden, but even more so on Trump. And it's this game of chicken that has got us to this situation. If they took seriously the deadlines that we gave them in our legislation, passed overwhelmingly bipartisan, so they could sell TikTok to another entity or individual, we would not be in this dilemma.
The popular video app is accused of posing a grave national security threat because of its ties to China. Incoming President Donald Trump has suggested, but not outright said, that he will not enforce the ban. Looking live at the U.S. Capitol now, and we are just 2 days out from Trump's second inauguration, set for Monday. Inaugural ceremonies are being moved indoors because of extreme cold and dangerous winds. CBS's Bradley Blackburn has more on the late changes and what you can expect for the expected crowds.
Preparations for an inauguration on the steps of the Capitol are now being scrapped as Washington braces for a polar plunge Monday. Forecasts with wind chills in the single digits are forcing the ceremonies inside. On Truth Social, President-elect Donald Trump said he ordered the move, writing, "There is an Arctic blast sweeping the country. I don't want to see people hurt or injured in any way." Some Trump supporters who've traveled to D.C. say they would have braved the cold.
I would stand in the 5-degree weather in order to support what he's going to do.
The Capitol Rotunda is ready as a backup location every 4 years. The last president to take the oath indoors was Ronald Reagan 40 years ago.
So help me God.
The temperature that day was 7 degrees. Inside, TV cameras and a few hundred dignitaries will be able to watch the swearing-in in person, but not the crowds that were expected outdoors on the National Mall.
I was really excited for my kids to witness it.
Katie Follis from New York attended Trump's first inauguration and brought her children this time. They had tickets to the ceremony.
I don't know what's happening. The tickets that we just picked up, the office said that they would let us know any updates.
Late Friday, President-elect Trump said some supporters will be able to gather in Washington's Capital One Arena to view the swearing-in on screens. And the newly inaugurated President Trump will then visit in person for a modified indoor parade. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
The Capital One Arena can seat roughly 20,000 people. Some 250,000 had tickets to attend the outdoor ceremony on the National Mall. Looking to Wall Street, Friday was a good day for investors. A majority of stocks climbed higher with all three major indices closing in the green. And here are the closing numbers. The Dow was up 335, NASDAQ close to 291, and the S&P nearly 60. Wisconsin's tax burden is at its lowest level since 1970. A new report from the Wisconsin Policy Forum finds taxes aren't as heavy of a burden for the average Wisconsinite as in previous years. Since the year 2000, no other state has seen such a steep decline in state and local taxes as a share of its income. But researchers say the burden could be moving toward people with lower income as the state leans more on sales tax.
As we shift more towards sales taxes tend to impact folks with lower incomes because they're spending more of their income on, vital clothes, cars, those sorts of things.
Researchers say there is a bit of a disagreement about what this means for the state economy, with some arguing a lower tax burden will result in greater economic growth. Others believe if you're not bringing in as much tax revenue, then you're not able to spend it on some state priorities. The New York Times is reporting that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's been nominated to head the Department of Health and Human Services, petitioned the government to stop using all of the COVID-19 vaccines in the middle of the pandemic. The report states that Kennedy petitioned the FDA in May of 2021, asking the agency to revoke authorization of the COVID vaccines. It was filed on behalf of the Children's Health Defense, which is an anti-vaccine nonprofit that Kennedy founded. The FDA later denied the petition in August of that year, but it was in last November when Kennedy told NBC News he would not ban vaccines in his role in the incoming Trump administration. The U.S. government has expanded testing of the nation's milk supply to better track the spread of bird flu. The Department of Agriculture says an additional 6 states have now enrolled in the program, and this brings the total to 36 states since the first round joined in early December. With the latest expansion, testing will now account for nearly 75% of the nation's milk production. H5N1 bird flu has been spreading in dairy cattle since at least March of last year. Millions of eyes will be on the sky this month as 6 planets will appear to line up in what's known as a planetary parade, and most can be seen with the naked eye. The celestial spectacle happened last June, but only 2 planets could be seen without any special equipment. So this time you can spot 4 of them just by looking up.
Venus and Saturn over in the western part of the sky, they'll be visible to the eye, and then you should be able to spot Jupiter and Mars further over to the east. Venus and Jupiter typically are the brightest ones.
Stargazers will need binoculars or a telescope to see Neptune and Uranus. The parade of planets will last through the month and for the first few weeks of February, and it's best to be spotted on a clear and cloudless night. Following the death of Brewers broadcaster Bob Uecker, Marcus Theatres is bringing the movie Major League back to the big screens. They'll be doing so for a limited time at their Wisconsin theaters beginning next Friday, the 24th. The company says admission will be $5.40, with a portion being donated to the Milwaukee Brewers Foundation. Tickets and information can be found at marcustheaters.com. Coming up now on 808, still ahead, some tips on keeping your car in good working shape this winter. Plus, Jacob is back with a look at the full First Warn forecast. That's next on Weekend Mornings.
Good morning, everybody. Here's a look at the 3 things you need to know. We are going to see the temperatures pretty steady today. They're not going to change too much from what they are right now. The alert day then will begin tonight as those temperatures will eventually fall. And then throughout the day on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, alert day conditions will continue. Wind chills could get all the way down to negative 35 degrees at times, specifically Tuesday morning. So we're talking about bitter cold weather. This is also going to be the case for all of Wisconsin. Really, the entire Midwest and Great Lakes region will be seeing this bitterly cold weather. And these wind chills between negative 20 and negative 30, these could happen during the afternoon hours as well. So once the wind chills drop below 0 tonight, they may stay below 0 for over 72 hours, maybe even closer to 96 hours, getting closer to that 100-hour range because it's going to be below 0 all Sunday, all Monday, all Tuesday into Wednesday morning as well. So we're talking about bitter cold weather. There's a cold weather advisory in effect for all of southern Wisconsin, and the National Weather Service is calling for those wind chills between negative 20 and negative 30. Now, as we take a look at the specific wind chill forecast, they'll be in the single digits throughout the day, so it is still going to be cold today. I don't want to gloss over that, but it's going to be a lot colder later tonight into tomorrow and then for the next 3 days after. So we're going to have wind chills in the negative 20s starting Sunday morning. And then for the afternoon hours, they're only going to warm up to the negative teens because it's still going to be bitterly cold. That's going to be the case for Monday as well, starting with wind chills in the negative 20s, improving a little bit to the negative teens. And then for Monday night into Tuesday morning, now this model only goes out this far to Monday at around midnight, but the temperatures are expected to continue to fall through sunrise Tuesday morning, and we could have wind chills near negative 35. So it is going to be very cold. I cannot say that enough. Definitely bundle up because wind chills could occur in as little as 15 minutes when temperatures are this cold. And obviously, don't forget that the pets can feel the wind chill as well. So if you are taking them for a walk, I would advise against it, but definitely keep it short if you are. But in reality, everyone should be staying indoors as much as you possibly could because it is going to be potentially dangerously cold the next couple days, even in the afternoon hours. Now, we're not really going to see much snow to accompany the cold weather, and it will eventually warm up starting Wednesday through the end of next week. We'll have temperatures much closer to normal, and then we actually could see highs in the 30s by the time we get to this time next week. But obviously, we are mainly focused on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Today will be cold as well, but if you have anything that you need to get, maybe do your grocery shopping today, still going to be cold, but a lot better compared to tomorrow.
Yeah, all good things to know about. It's going to be really cold tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Jacob. Well, as Jacob mentioned, we are in for another round of some bone-chilling temperatures, and experts are urging you to stay safe. Doctors say if you plan to be outside during the freezing temperatures, you need to watch out for several things. First is signs of frostbite, maybe redness or even pain in the body. Then if you're noticing skin turning dusky gray or blue or even blistering, you should seek medical attention immediately. As for hypothermia, signs in adults include shivering, exhaustion, confusion, and drowsiness. And it's also important to prepare your vehicle for the colder weather. Most people know to keep at least a half a tank of gas in their car when temperatures get this low. And that's a good tip, but you also might like to let your car warm up before driving. However, that's not so much a good tip, with an expert saying doing that could actually be bad for your car.
Let it only run for maybe about a minute and then warm it up by driving it. When the car is idle, the oil's not properly lubricating everything, and honestly, it lubricates the best by driving it a little bit. So, honestly, the best way would be to start your car, let it run for 30 seconds, a minute, and then drive it to warm it up.
Aside from taking care of your engine, mechanics also suggest making sure you have a strong battery. You can get it tested when you take your car in for an oil change. You also want to make sure you have good wiper blades and the proper windshield wiper fluid. Another tip is to ensure your tires are ready for the winter. Some news out of La Crosse. The accused child killer Josie Dykeman is out of jail. Dykeman was released Friday after posting a $50,000 cash bond. The court ordered her cash bond to be reduced from $250,000 to $50,000 in December. She is facing felony charges of first-degree intentional homicide, chronic neglect of a child resulting in death and physical abuse of a child. A jury trial is set for August 11th. Police in Madison say they are investigating a vehicle shooting on the Beltline Highway. The incident happened yesterday at around 1 in the morning near Gammon Road. Police say a vehicle was heading east when it was hit. They further say nobody inside the vehicle was hurt. There have been no arrests made. Happening tomorrow, Winter Restaurant Week will kick off here in Madison. Our partners at Madison Magazine put on 2 restaurant weeks every year, one in the summer and then one in the winter. Since the pandemic, Madison Restaurant Week continues to grow, and it's an opportunity for businesses to showcase their best menu items with some new things too. This week, there are 43 participating locations. Madison Magazine tells us that is the most they've had since before COVID. So here's how Restaurant Week works. You can go to channel3000.com and you'll find a running list of all the locations taking part. Starting at $30, those restaurants offer a menu of 3 courses. Some will also offer a lunch menu for $20. Just be sure to make reservations ahead of time if you can. Coming up now on 8:20 here on your Saturday morning, still ahead. Several Madison nonprofits are gearing up, hoping to make transportation accessible for all ages. Plus, Will Loper has a look at the 3 things you need to watch. This is Weekend Mornings.
Well, we continue to talk about the cold weather that is expected, but it's important to know just why the cold can be so dangerous. So first, here's a look at the wind chill and frostbite chart. We've been showing this the last couple of days. This yellow box is where we are expected to be by tomorrow morning, and that's going to continue for the most part through Tuesday. And frostbite could occur in as little as 30 minutes when wind chills get this cold, but it's also kind of close to that 10-minute mark. So probably on average around 20 minutes frostbite could occur with exposed skin. So it's definitely important to bundle up out there. Now, for those of you that, don't really know the difference between wind chill and actual temperature. So the wind chill is more important to pay attention to because that's what our bodies feel. Now, when there's not any wind out there, there's a layer of heat that kind of stays around our bodies that makes it feel what the actual temperatures are. So if it's negative 11, for example, with no wind, it'll feel like it's negative 11. But you add that wind in, it blows that heat away and makes it feel a lot colder. So let's say, for example, it is a negative 11. We have a 15-mile-per-hour wind speed. Winds, feels like temperatures will then drop all the way down to negative 34 in this instance. And these temperatures and wind speeds, these are not too far off. We could potentially get down to this low of level. So again, definitely bundle up out there, but also try not to stay outside too long. And when temperatures get this cold, it's also possible for hypothermia to occur if you are outside for a prolonged period of time, which you shouldn't be, but if for whatever reason you happen to be outside for a long time. Here are the difference between frostbite and hypothermia. With frostbite, you have more of a numb feeling, whereas hypothermia, you get confusion and difficulty speaking as well as some sleepiness. Frostbite, you get a redness or pain in the skin. And the other difference is that in terms of how you feel, hypothermia causes stiff muscles, whereas frostbite, the skin feels unusually firm or waxy. But again, you should not be outside for a prolonged period of time. But if you find yourself in this situation, these are the differences between hypothermia and frostbite. Frostbite still can be very dangerous, so definitely take it easy out there. Stay inside if you can and bundle up if you are outside.
Yeah, all good things to know. All right, Jacob, thank you. Well, there are several new shows and movies to stream this weekend. Our Will Loper shares a few of the best in this weekend's 3 Things to Watch.
Mr. Scout, I know you're still weighing whether to return to Lumen. But the mark I've come to know is happy.
Head back to the office with a second season of Severance, newly streaming on Apple TV+.
What you all did was one of the most painful moments in the history of this company. But the 4 of you have become known as the face of severance reform.
Adam Scott returns to discover more mysteries in the sci-fi series.
Oh, hey, neighbor. People can be cruel, I imagine.
All unhappiness in life comes from not accepting what is.
See one of the best films of 2024 with A Different Man, newly streaming on Max.
Perhaps any potential risk is worth the reward?
Sebastian Stan plays an aspiring actor who undergoes a medical procedure that drastically changes his appearance and his life in unexpected ways.
You know how we idealize people when we're in love?
So I'm the idolized version of Oswald?
Rose, darling, I've got to go see Lyle. I've got to make this trip on my own.
Alvin, you're gonna get blown on the road. That's what I'm afraid.
And celebrate the career of director David Lynch by streaming his 1999 film, The Straight Story, streaming on Disney+.
I'd be happy to drive you.
I still want to finish this the way I started. I just hope I'm not too late.
The film is based on the true story of Alvin Straight, a man who gets on his lawnmower to travel 240 miles from Iowa to Wisconsin in order to make amends with his dying brother.
I want to make peace. I want to sit with him, look up at the stars, like we used to do so long ago.
Those are the 3 things you need to watch, and this is Will Loper for Weekend Mornings.
And there's still a half an hour of news to come. Next, we're going to run through the morning's top headlines. This is Weekend Mornings. Right now, TikTok could soon shut down following a Supreme Court decision to uphold a ban on the social media app. Plus, local nonprofits are gearing up. We have the efforts being made to make transportation accessible for all ages. This is Weekend Mornings, and once again, thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Pazurski. It is Saturday, January 18th. Let's start with a look at the first warm forecast. Jacob Montesano standing by with that. Good morning, Jacob.
Good morning, Kyle. And temperatures continue to fall this morning right now in the teens across southern Wisconsin. A few areas still hanging on to the lower 20s, but for the most part, we are certainly colder than at this time yesterday. Here's a look at the temperature change. 21 degrees colder for you folks in La Crosse, 13 degrees colder in Madison. And throughout the day, this number is likely going to get bigger because the temperatures aren't going to change all that much today, whereas yesterday, they got almost up to 50 for some areas. Now, as we look at the current wind speed, this is the big driving factor in this temperature swing. We are seeing some strong winds out of the north-northwest, some areas up to 20 miles per hour, and this is also going to continue throughout the day, so it's going to prevent temperatures from rising any further. Now, current wind chills aren't as bad as they will be tomorrow, but they certainly are cold. 4 degrees right now in Madison, below 0 further northwest. So it is going to be a cold day, but alert day conditions will begin tonight. But again, it is still going to be cold today, so it's important to note that. Highs will be in the teens. That's going to be the temperature really all day as we'll continue to see some breezy conditions. We are going to see plenty of sunshine, and wind chills will remain right around 0 for much of the day. But they're going to plummet well below 0 overnight into tomorrow, and I'll talk more about that coming up in just a bit.
All right, Jacob, thank you. We'll check back in just a bit. Some top stories we are following this half hour. The Supreme Court upheld the ban on TikTok Friday, which could take effect as soon as tomorrow. The court rejected an appeal from the social media app's owners, claiming the controversial ban violates the First Amendment. The Biden administration says it does not plan to enforce the ban and will leave that up to President-elect Trump. The company said it will go dark when the ban takes effect. In D.C., we are now just 2 days away from the next Trump inauguration, but the ceremony will be held inside the Capitol Rotunda on Monday. Trump announcing the change of plans Friday on social media, citing the frigid weather headed to Washington by going the tradition of holding the ceremony on the Capitol steps. It is also not known yet if another tradition will happen, and that being if President Biden will leave his successor a letter.
This will mark the first time that a president who has received a letter from an outgoing president may well be writing a letter to the same person who's the incoming president.
And we'll just have to wait and see if that does happen. Meanwhile, Friday was President-elect Trump's last full day at Mar-a-Lago before heading to D.C. Ahead of the inauguration, we checked in with Wisconsin Republicans who are in the nation's capital for this event. Coming off the presidential victory in the state, Republican Party Chair Brian Schimming is in D.C. right now, and he's meeting with some of his national Republican colleagues ahead of Monday's inauguration. We spoke with him about what to expect from a new Trump administration for folks watching back here in Wisconsin.
You know, I think there's a lot of emphasis on getting off to a fast start. No doubt about that in my mind whatsoever. People want action quickly. I mean, we've had kind of previews from Trump administration folks, not on specifics, but just reinforcing the fact that they want to get off to a fast start on Monday.
You can see more from our interview coming up this Sunday at 10:30. It's on For the Record, WISC-TV. And we'll have robust coverage of the inauguration coming up on Monday, sitting down with U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, as well as looking at how the Dane County community is looking ahead to a second Trump term. Well, in his final days in office, President Joe Biden has granted clemency for nearly 2,500 nonviolent drug offenders. Biden said in a statement his decision provides relief for federal prisoners who received lengthy sentences compared to how they would be sentenced today under current law. In December, Biden commuted the sentences of 1,500 people who had already been on house arrest due to the COVID-19 pandemic. He also commuted the sentence of 37 people on federal death row to life in prison.
Said many times.
Well, happening today, the Midwest's largest bike swap comes to Madison. Ahead of the event, several local nonprofits teamed up to gear up. Our Maddie Heims reports.
We're fortunate in that we live in this bike-loving community.
Christy Goforth is the executive director of Bikes for Kids Wisconsin, a nonprofit working to give everyone a ride, or as she calls it,
transportation equity.
Despite its name, Bikes for Kids Wisconsin's mission is to provide accessible transportation to all ages, having distributed over 12,000 bikes to the community since 2017.
Right now, we have about 1,800 bicycles in here, and every year it happens. We give them away, and it fills up again.
The organization accepts bicycle donations year-round before refurbishing and giving them away.
Marginalized communities, people that are facing massive transportation barriers to employment or to school or even accessing food.
And they're not alone on that trek.
It's an equity issue.
Steve Arnold is the treasurer of the Bike Fitchburg Board of Directors. He says there's no better place to pedal.
We have amazing infrastructure, great policies and investment, and that leaks into the surrounding communities like Fitchburg and Middleton and Monona.
And believes biking is a gear worth shifting into.
There are very few problems that plague society that can't be improved by more people biking. Health, congestion, pollution, climate protection, traffic, parking.
Which is why Bikes for Kids Wisconsin wants everyone to have the opportunity to take part. Reporting on Madison Southside, I'm Maddie Heimsch, News 3 Now.
And Bikes for Kids accepts donations year-round. If you have a bike or bike parts to give, you can find out how to donate at bikesforkidswi.org. Time now 8:36, still ahead. The cost of home insurance is rapidly rising. Plus, here's a look at today's day in history. Welcome back. Some consumer news. Wisconsin's tax burden is now at its lowest level since 1970. A new report from the Wisconsin Policy Forum finds taxes aren't as heavy of a burden for the average Wisconsinite as in previous years. Since the year 2000, no other state has seen such a steep decline in state and local taxes as a share of income. But researchers say the burden could be moving towards people with lower income as the state leans more on sales tax.
As we shift more towards sales taxes tend to impact folks with lower incomes because they're spending more of their income on, vital clothes, cars, those sorts of things.
Researchers say there is a bit of a disagreement about what this means for the state economy, with some arguing a lower tax burden will result in greater economic growth. Others believe if you're not bringing in as much tax revenue, then you're not able to spend it on state priorities. A new report says insurance costs are rising rapidly for many homeowners. Data released by the Treasury Department Thursday shows that homeowners' insurance costs increased 9% faster than overall inflation from 2018 to 2022. The spike has been attributed to extreme weather events, like hurricanes and fires. According to the report, 20% of homes in zip codes judged to be at greater risk for extreme weather paid an average of more than $2,300 a year in premiums. One of the largest mutual fund companies in the U.S. agreed to pay investors $106 million. The issue is with changes that Vanguard made to its investor target retirement funds. Those changes resulted in larger capital gains taxes for customers who held them in taxable accounts. The Securities and Exchange Commission found that Vanguard made misleading statements in 2020 and 2021 for those funds. The changes prompted many institutional investors to move their money out of the funds. Though Vanguard agreed to pay $106 million to affected investors, it did not admit any wrongdoing. A common food coloring is now banned, and why stress isn't always a bad thing. Michael George has the week's top health stories.
The FDA is removing authorization for the artificial food coloring red number 3. The dye is commonly used in candy, cakes, frostings, cookies, and cupcakes. Studies show the products can cause cancer in rats. Though the agency says it hasn't been confirmed to cause cancer in humans, red number 3 has already been banned in cosmetics. A study on the impact of stress on surgeons yielded some surprising results. The data, published in JAMA Network, found surgeons experiencing stress performed better in surgery, which led to fewer surgical complications. While the authors warned that excessive stress may cause worse performance, moderate amounts of stress may lead people to perform better. We know about the health costs of smoking, but a new study shows smokers also earn less money. A study published by Oxford University Press found people who smoked regularly for 5 years earned 9% less than non-smokers. The reasons may be due to smoking's negative impact on productivity, physical fitness, and performance. Those are some of the week's top health stories. Michael George, CBS News.
And still to come here on this Saturday morning, Zach is in with a look at Friday's sports headlines. Plus, Jacob is back with another full check of the first warn forecast. This is Weekend Mornings.
Good morning, everybody. Here's a look at the 3 things you need to know. We are going to see the temperatures pretty steady today. Right now, they're in the teens. They're going to stay there until we get to the overnight hours where they're going to start to drop, and that is when the alert day will begin. Wind chills could get down to as low as negative 35 degrees at times, especially for Tuesday morning. So as we look at the alert day, this is for all of Wisconsin, and even during the afternoon hours, we could be talking about wind chills between negative 20 and negative 30. Again, it begins tonight and lasts all the way through Tuesday, including most of the day on Tuesday, not just the morning hours. There's a cold weather advisory in effect for all of southern Wisconsin. National Weather Service is expecting wind chills between negative 20 and negative 30. Right now, it's just from 3 a.m. tonight through 9 p.m. Monday, but I do expect that to be extended, and we could also see it get upgraded to a wind chill warning. Now, as we take a look at the current wind chills, right now near 0, may rise a little bit above 0 throughout the day, but once we get past sunset, notice from the northwest all that cold air filtering in across southern Wisconsin. Wind chills will be in the negative 20s at this time tomorrow, and they're not going to improve much throughout the day. They're going to stay in the negative 20s to maybe negative teens at times, but there's not really going to be a ton of relief. As we look at the forecast for Monday, wind chill wise, it's going to be much of the same. Negative 20s to start the day, negative teens during the afternoon. And as we get towards Monday night and Tuesday, that's when the wind chills look to be the coldest. We're going to have them possibly in the negative 30s. So we're talking about bitterly cold temperatures, and frostbite could occur in as little as 15 minutes at times, but on average, probably around 20 minutes, which is still a very short period of time as we look at the frostbite times when wind chills are this cold. Now, it is important to point out that wind chills are felt by living things that includes your pets. So try not to take them on a walk. I would advise against it, not just for yourself, but for them as well. It takes away heat from the body. And so your car would be more, if you worry about your car, definitely focus on the actual temperatures. But for all living things, the wind chill is more important to keep an eye on. It is going to be bitterly cold the next couple of days. So again, if you have anything to do, probably try and get it done today. It's still going to be cold today, but not quite as dangerously cold as it will be Sunday through Tuesday, because we're going to continue to see breezy conditions. Now, actual temperatures, they may stay below zero, but the wind chills will definitely stay below zero because we're going to have wind speeds up around 10 to 15 miles per hour continuously over the next several days. Now, it is going to warm up for Wednesday and the end of next week. And we actually could see highs in the 30s this time next week. We also are going to continue to see very little snowfall, but it's certainly going to feel like winter. If it doesn't feel like winter yet, just wait till tomorrow.
Normally, Shark Week is sometime in the summer, and we're watching great whites and hammerheads do their thing on the Discovery Channel. Well, Friday, though, it was a different kind of Shark Week with the Wisconsin men welcoming in Long Island to the Kohl Center. Badgers back home for the first time in 40 days, and Quentin Finley wasted no time to get the party started. Rylan Mosley finds him, and Finley, well, he goes top shelf where Mama keeps those cookies. His 17th goal of the season gives Wisconsin a 1-0 lead. Now, it's tied at 1 later in the first. Badgers force the turnover, and Gavin Morrissey cashes in. He snipes one into the back of the net. He scored twice as Wisconsin skates by Long Island 6-3, the final. The first of Wisconsin women's hockey's final 3 road trips to the land of 10,000 lakes began Friday night against St. Thomas, a team, as you'd expect, the Badgers have never lost to. Mark Johnson's squad is a perfect 15-0 against the Tommies, and back in November, they outscored them 11-3. Well, Casey O'Brien had herself a first period. Badgers on the power play. The puck finds O'Brien, and she lights the lamp off her own rebound to give Wisconsin an early lead. Then later in the period, it's tied at 1. They're on the attack again, this time Kirsten Sims with a beauty of a pass to O'Brien, and she scores her second as Wisconsin wins again 6-1, the final. And speaking of Casey O'Brien, she's our guest for next week's Wisconsin Huddle, and you can come out to a live taping of the show on Monday, January 20th at Pooley's Sports Bar. Show starts at 6:45. We hope to see you there. Well, the wait is over. Professional volleyball is officially here, and it's only right that the UW Fieldhouse would be the site of Love Madison's home opener, a place that Sarah Franklin, Lauren Carlini, and Temi Thomas-Ilara are pretty familiar with. The former Badger trio are now pro ballers. Madison taking on Salt Lake. And speaking of Carlini, it's like she never left. She serves up an ace. Now, Madison would win the first set thanks to Frank the Tank. Franklin hits it too hot to handle for one of her team-high 19 kills. And Love Madison wins their first ever match in franchise history in 5 sets. And we knew it was going to happen, but Jack Nelson made it official in a thank you post to Badger Nation. After 5 years at Wisconsin, the former Stoughton Viking is headed to the NFL draft. Now, Nelson was a mainstay on the O-line, starting 50 games during his time as a Badger. And that's it for Morning Sports. Have a great day.
A reminder that Chocolate Shop Ice Cream is hosting a fundraiser for Abundant Life Christian School this weekend. This Sunday, the ice cream shop will donate 50% of its profits to the United Way of Dane County Fund. All 9 of the company's locations will participate. The fundraiser will run from open to close time, and they're not the only restaurants giving back. We have a list of other participating restaurants donating to Abundant Life on our website, channel2000.com. Well, following the death of Brewers broadcaster Bob Uecker, Marcus Theaters is bringing the movie Major League back to the big screens, and they'll be doing so for a limited time at their Wisconsin theaters. Beginning next Friday, the 24th, the company says admission will be $5.40 for 54 years of broadcasting, with a portion being donated to the Milwaukee Brewers Foundation. Tickets and information can be found at the marcustheaters.com. Jacob has a final check of the forecast. And Jacob, a question I just had to ask you, who do you think is more popular nationwide? Is it Harry Carey or Bob Uecker as a radio broadcaster?
Well, I mean,
you only know Harry Carey as a Chicago guy, right?
Yeah, but I feel like Harry Carey is a more recognizable name. Again, I don't want to stamp that and say that's final.
There are many a times where Bob Uecker was on the Tonight Show, so maybe for someone not our age, maybe someone a lot older would know Bob Uecker more. But
again, I grew up in Chicago, so obviously, you know, I'm biased.
Oh yeah,
I didn't grow up with Harry.
Saying that Bob Uecker was more.
I didn't grow up with Harry Carey, but a lot of places I go, there's Harry Carey stuff, you know, like all over the place.
I'm willing to bet that Bob Uecker is a lot more famous.
I wonder if we could look up like a number of Google searches. Now, obviously, today would be what's it called? Today would be not accurate because everyone's looking up Bob Uecker today, but
yeah, right.
But I mean, I'll be honest.
I might do that for tomorrow.
I feel like I'm not in a good position to say.
Okay.
I don't think either of us are because we grew up in.
You said during the break you never watched Major League either. So
it's like the one baseball movie.
On Bob Uecker.
It's like the one baseball movie I haven't gotten around to. I love Sandlot. I love Moneyball.
Yeah.
I just haven't watched Major League yet.
And it's gonna be cold tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe I'll sit at home and watch Major League tomorrow with the temperatures being where they are. Yeah, it's going to be very cold. Wind chills well below zero, starting tonight, lasting all the way through Wednesday morning. So we could be talking about 100 hours of below zero wind chills. So, I mean, it's going to be very cold. There's not going to be much relief during the day, those 3 days.
All right, Jacob, thank you. And thank you all for watching. We'll be back here tomorrow morning at 6:30. We'll see you then.